Mm. Dan. Damn. You know, it's a shame that this man had to, go full colossal and self-destruct mode on himself, on the other traders in order to get what he wanted, and it was his way or the highway. And goes to show you guys like this, they're always gonna think it's their way and is the best way, and nobody else knows what they're doing. Welcome, y'all. We back to the DeAndre Way, and we going over the Traitors season 2, episode 6, titled "Blood in the Water." We going through the entire episode and telling y'all what's really going down and giving you my analysis and opinion of the whole situation. This was the best episode by far. I keep saying that every single week, but this show just keeps raising the bar again and again and again, as we trying to do at this channel, raise the bar again and again and again. And so make sure before, we get started to it, subscribe to the DeAndre Way, as well as, subscribe to the Patreon if you want to get more info on my personal life, what's going on with me, different people from Squid Game, other reality shows, etc. We amping that up a lot. So make sure you tune into that as well. But yeah, y'all, this episode was wild. I was expecting Dan to get sent home and murdered. I was about to say if he wasn't sent home and murdered this episode, I probably would have turned the TV off and flipped it upside down and threw it out the window, because it would have been a shame. It would have been a shame to the whole game, and I would have think some things are going on in the background to keep this man in the game. So it was good to finally see the faithfuls all rally together, get under one, solid plan, which was Peter's plan, Peter the genius. And yeah, they got him up out of there swiftly, but Dan fought tooth and nail to the last minute, even though none of his strategies seemed to make sense. And I was like, how did this man win Big Brother playing like this? I mean, the metrics of things and the identity politics of things are welcome on Dan's side for a game more like Big Brother than the Traitors. But that only can get you so far, especially in a game like this. So he had to learn the hard way. I mean, he turned on his best friend Janelle, for Christ's sake. And then he tried to turn, I thought he was going to turn on Parvati, but he turned on his fellow traitor. So it's like this man was willing to sell no soul on his way, sell every soul. He's willing to sell every soul on his way to victory, but he messed with the wrong one. And he got a little caught up and lost in the sauce and lost in the music. So the episode first gets off with the fifth murder being attempted. They tried to murder Bergie, and, you know, Parvati told him not to do it. Phaedra told him not to do it, essentially. He didn't want to listen. He thinks he knows it all. He thinks he knows everything. Granted, I listened to Dan's podcast, or his some of most of his podcasts about, his elimination, and he took ownership. So he took ownership of this, which I like. We gotta take responsibility for our actions, and he did that where he didn't listen to Parvati, and he, basically said he thought he was right, and he just didn't trust her. Essentially, he didn't trust her. Saying, I think the only person he really trusted in this game was Janelle to a point, but then she even turned on him because she knew what time it was. She knew what time it was with Dan, and he had to go. But yeah, Parvati, she was on. She tried. But why couldn't you trust Phaedra, man? Why are you only trusting Parvati? I mean, I know. Look, his reasoning was like, oh, it'd be great if we had this Survivor, Big Brother alliance that all the fans wanted. The fans don't. I don't know if the fans were craving over this. Look, I'm not crazy into Survivor. Like, I like watching it casually, but I don't know the ins and outs of everything when it comes to that, especially the fandom. But man, you put your blinders on. You put, he said he bets on one horse in the race when it comes to these games, and who he's going to lead with him on the way down to the finish line. He did Memphis once, and then that got him to the end, and then this time he's done Parvati. So, but Parvati hasn't been playing that well, and you could see that too. So you're putting your horse in that. You're putting your trust in that horse on the way to the finish line. Because Parvati looked like she's next. And once you saw that Parvati was a target, why not just jump on her as well? I don't, it doesn't make sense when you're going to flip the script and go to Phaedra out of all people, who you even said yourself as well like. So why would her friends turn on her just like that over you? It makes no sense. It literally made no sense. His mind was working backwards. I think he was streaming too long to kind of, he might have been out the game too long to realize what was really going down. But yes, they tried to attempt to murder Bergie, and soon we get to breakfast. And so we see Kate, Parvati, and Sheree are the first ones at breakfast. Parvati's real nervous about what went down because she knows that Dan took control and she didn't want that to vote Bergie, but she had to, just put her hands up and say, I can't do it. She should have put her foot down a little bit more, but at the end of the day, he's not going to budge. Dan even said that it's been his way every single turret meeting, every single time. And so the ladies, they're just kind of just like, whatever, our name's not out there, so we'll just let you take control and hope for the best. But Parvati's name was out there a little bit, so she should have took control a little bit of this a little bit more because it might have saved her, or it might save her. I mean, I predict that she's going out soon as well, just based off the metrics of things. But we'll see. I mean, maybe she won't be going out soon because she has a new ally. But we'll get to that in ally and Peter. But yes, CT and Dan are the next two in as well as Sandra. And Dan knows it's a huge risk going for Bergie again. And he knows if he's wrong, his head is on the platter and it might get sliced and diced with the scythe. He knows what time it is. I He just seemed to be fooled so easily. And he should have known, like, look, let me secure everything before I make this move. He didn't, I don't know if he considered, because he said, oh, I don't think Peter's from the, this is his reasoning. Peter's from The Bachelor. He's not that smart. He's from a dating show. It does not matter what show you come from when it comes to these games. These people don't literally apply for one show and that's all their hopes and dreams that they've ever been, and that's their entire personality. Dan thinks, oh, you're a housewife, you're this. Oh, you're a survivor, you're this. Oh, you're Big Brother, you're this. Oh, you're a bachelor, you're this. Just because you did a show does not mean that is your whole entire personality and you have nothing else to offer and you're just surface level to that degree. Maybe Dan might be. Maybe he's just like, oh, I'm a gamer, I'm smart. Like, just because you play Big Brother don't mean you're the smartest one in the room. All right? That's not the case. So him saying these things is barbaric and asinine. I'm like, have you ever walked outside and talked to just people who've done, maybe surfing and then they're also an engineer or they're a football player as well as they have a graduate degree in, I don't know, the hospitality per se, a bartender who's also a guitarist. Like, you think people were one thing and that's it? So that's his biggest fault in the game. He just labeled these people certain things and he just could not get his eyes off of that. And that's what cost him. He even admitted he underestimated Phaedra and he underestimated Peter because he didn't think that he could come up with this kind of plan. And he didn't think Phaedra had that kind of bark in her bite. So, or that kind of bite in her bark to, go toe to toe with him because she's from Housewives. Just because of what show you're on, that's ridiculous. Just the way of thinking is just ridiculous to me. Sandra said she thinks it'll be John that's eliminated because he's the most faithful, and the faithful that will be eliminated. Phaedra is next to walk in with MJ, and Phaedra says she feels frustrated walking to breakfast because Dan was in control of it. Yes, he wasn't giving you any kind of say, and if it was Phaedra's way, maybe y'all could have whittled down another number. Most likely y'all would have, but hey, you don't want to listen to the sister. Maybe you can listen to her on the TV now that you're eliminated. Soon, Peter is the next one to walk in with Kevin, and so we find out that Bergie, Trishelle, and John are the last ones, not or last ones yet to enter. And so, Dan is getting real nervous in his boots, because he knows what time it was, and he knows who he voted for. And he's like, oh, well, we know that Trishelle was the one who really didn't have the shield. No, she did have the shield. Her and Bergie did have the shield. So Trishelle and Bergie did have the shield. And John didn't have it, but he was never really like a suspect. And we know they weren't even talking about eliminating John in the Traitors turret. So I don't know. Dan is thinking. I mean, he has to know and see it clearly now that you know, Trishelle is the one that or Trishelle Bergie is the one that's gonna come walking through that door. He has to know it by this point. And yeah, so soon Trishelle walks in next, and then John walks in right after her. And so the trap worked. Peter is ecstatic. He can hardly hold it in his face, and he is cheesing from cheek to cheek. This man has come through and shown that, hey, just because I hand out roses don't mean I don't know how to pull out them guns and start getting these things ablazing. I mean, look, the thing about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, the guys on the Bachelorette are not just lovey-dovey, hopeless romantics, dumb people who just think about love all day. That's so far from the case. And just because you're on the title of the show named The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, does not mean that that's your whole archetype and that's everything that you are. Most of the guys in The Bachelor are actually pretty strong. They're pretty smart. They're pretty witty. They're pretty, they have to be all these things in one to get this girl, especially to make it far. So these people got to be strategic as well as, have a good observation of themselves. Have a good all around because the girl's not going to pick you if you're to this or to that. These girls want the perfect guys, quote unquote. So Bachelor isn't a strategy game, but you have to be well rounded in a lot of areas, a lot. So I don't know why maybe because he hasn't watched it. I've fortunately been able to watch a couple seasons, and I've seen I thought kind of the thing. Oh, these guys are hopeless romantics. They just want to get on the show, this, that. But these guys are strong. They're smart. They have good jobs. The thing is, the girl's not gonna pick no guy with no weak job who ain't got it going on, who doesn't look good, who doesn't smart. She's gonna say bye because I have 20 other guys to choose from. But Dan never thought about this aspect of The Bachelor. He just thinks it's about handing out roses. Very simple minded thinking. Once again, I don't know. Must have had some clowns on his seasons of Big Brother. But yes, Dan thinks he's in the clear because Berkey doesn't walk in and he thinks, oh, he's good. Like he doesn't have the shield. I'm safe. And everybody else thinks Berkey is gone. But Trishelle knows and Peter knows. And they're just trying to hold it in. They're trying to hold it back. And everyone's going to be shook when they walk in. And then next thing you know, you hear the knock on the door. Bergie walks in the door. He's like, what's popping, y'all? I'm still in the game. They tried to murder your boy. They tried to kill me. But he's right here. And he's like, I'm right here right now, coach. What's popping? What's cracking? And yeah, he says, I had the shields. And it's pretty much, you know, everybody knows what time it is. There was a lot of commentary that we probably missed in this aspect, but we can tell Dan is shook. Phaedra's shook, and so is Parvati. But mostly Dan and Parvati. Trishelle. Phaedra's like, oh, my burgerlicious. So she plays it off fine. And then Dan uses that as a reason later to kind of come at her. And I'm just like, Dan, you're really grasping at straws at this point, bro. Like, you couldn't think of anything else besides a small comment that she made. I, Everything about this episode was exposing Dan to the fullest. It was sad. It was sad. But yes, soon, Bergie reveals that someone gave him the death warrant last night, and Peter says, checkmate, I got you, bitch. And Trishelle congratulates him as well. So everyone's, loving this because Bergie's safe. And Peter was slick enough to, he knew Bergie was safe at the end, of course, because they knew they weren't gonna, he knew they wasn't gonna get rid of Trishelle. So he was looking at everyone's reaction. He was watching people left and right, mostly Parvati and Dan and CT, and just seeing how they reacted. He didn't even, we didn't get to see that aspect of it, but he was peeping them, and that's how he figured it out. It was Dan and Parvati because they the ones who were the most shook. You can only hide that reaction so much, your initial one, because Dan's mouth was probably like, same as Parvati. Them two were both probably jaw dropped, and CT's like, oh yeah. You can't really fake that. So Peter, he clocking him. He clocking him real good right now. So yeah, Peter's definitely taking care of his business and helping everybody out in order to get the mission done finally. So yeah, it's between CT, Dan, and Parvati, who's a traitor according to Peter. But then Peter explains, his plan that to everyone at the breakfast table that he wanted people to think that Janelle and Peter had the shield. So he leaked it to a few people that he had the shield, even though he didn't when the murder was voided. And those people he sneaked it to was, of course, CT, Dan, and Parvati. And Dan says it was leaked to him and he's not a traitor. CT said it was leaked to him as well, and so did Parvati. They all admitted to it getting leaked, but they're trying to play it cool, calm, and collected right now. So they're doing what they need to do. They're playing the game. They're trying to just be honest. They got caught, but hey, like it wasn't me still. Anybody believes him at that point? I don't know. It's just like it's pressed. With all this evidence and planning Peter did, and he pointed it out on a platter. It's got to be one of y'all three. So one of y'all threes is 100% going home. Like it's not going to be nobody else. So in Dan's mind, knowing that it's one of us three, you need to paint it on Parvati or CT. Why would you paint it on Phaedra? That makes no sense. You trying to get the sister out, but you got two other big targets on your plate right there. I don't care if you're working with them or not. What are you doing? I mean, it's very simple what the task is at hand for you, but you want to call an audible Omaha, Omaha, and go a completely different direction. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Soon, the host comes in, and he's telling everybody, "Oh, okay, nobody's killed, blah 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 blah, not too much." And Dan thinks Peter is not that slick. He's a bachelor giving out roses, but he definitely got him on that one. And Peter's actually playing the game. Like I said, I keep saying the same thing. Does Dan play with a bunch of? I might need to rewatch those Big Brother seasons that Dan won and really see what was going on in the strategic implementation of these other players. Because does he think he's the only smart one in the room? That's the kind of vibes he's giving me. Like, are you the only one with a brain? Is everyone else the scare or the Tin Man and the Scarecrow just don't know what's going on? I don't know. I guess the Scarecrow. If I only had a brain settings, but it's great. It's crazy to me that he's thinking like this. It's crazy. Peter noticed that Dan and Parvati reacted heavily and CT didn't react at all. We spoke about that. And Peter is telling Parvati what happened. And so she feels bad for. Peter is telling Phaedra what happened to Dan and Parvati. Phaedra's like, oh, she's trying to play it off. She feels bad, but hey, she's like, as long as that's not my black ass, I'm good, coach. And it's every trader for themselves, and she's putting up a pretty good act on this. Phaedra's giving it right now. He's giving it. She's bringing that Bravo energy to Peacock, and she's showing why she should be here based off how she's able to carry herself in moments of tension, stress, and surprising times per se. So I give her credit for that, man. She definitely giving it to us. She's definitely giving it to us. So soon Parvati sits down with Peter and he is suspicious of her now being a traitor. And she's like, well, I'm suspicious of you being a traitor. You could be the one because you say all this plan and this and that. He's like, Parvati, chill. Like, you ain't got the numbers, coach. You ain't got the numbers. I got my little alliance. Who you got? Dan, who don't say nothing to nobody? Who else you got? Your girl Ekon Sue's gone because you gave her the chalice. And so it's like, what you doing? I mean, Sandra, but her and Sandra ain't cool like that. So your Survivor alliance ain't even a real alliance. So she's toast. All you need is the eggs and the grits. And Peter, when he's sitting down, he's grilling her, like going in. She said she's doing her best but she's doing her best to figure things out. He said he's trying to work with her right now, but she's not giving him anything. She's still shook right now. She's stuck like, a statue gargoyle, like she was at breakfast when she found out Bergie was safe, and she just can't get past that. And she's just rambling on right now, and she's definitely lost herself in the music. She needs to snap out of it. She's down. She's drowning out with the hypnosis. So I don't know what's going on with Parvati. I mean, she just can't seem to shake back after this, and she just doesn't know which angle to turn. She's trying to figure something out. But yeah, as soon as Dan is the next one to sit down with Peter, and Peter tells Dan is confident, and it could be Parvati because like Dan's giving a good act right now. He definitely did his homework, and he was calm, cool, and collected in his meeting too. So maybe it not be him, but I know it's one of y'all too. So one of y'all's going home. One of y'all's going home, or else I'm going home because I was the one to accuse y'all and set up this whole elaborate plan. So he don't care who it is, as long as it's one of them too. And you know, uh, Peter says that he's pretty convinced from Dan after what he's telling him. He's like, Dan's convincing. He's telling me this. He's telling me that. I believe him. And he's not giving much back to Dan, so Dan knows that Peter's on to him completely at this point. Same as Bergie. I mean, they're in the same alliance, so they're gunning for him. But Dan, he's shaking right now. He's shaking in his boots, trying to pull off some tricks, some voodoo magic, some black magic. I don't know, but he's trying to do something. Maybe press the game reset button, use the Men in Black little thing to forget everyone's memory. He's trying the whole nine, but he ain't built like that. He got some strategic implementation for certain things, but this was not what he was ready for, and this is not what he signed up for. So soon, it is time for today's mission, and the mission could add $20,000 for the prize pot. And all they have to do is fire in a cannonball from the cannonball and hit the target. That's all they have to do. But The catapult launch site is on the top of a massive hill, and the catapult isn't there yet, so they need to find and collect and carry catapult pieces during the journey in order to successfully build the machine on the route, the catapult machine. They'll find things that help them transport the pieces, so all they need all the strength and tools they can muster. Johnny Bananas would have been good on this, but you know they had to. Dan had to send him packing, so that's on him. And soon they must carry, also on the mission, they must carry and collect pieces before constructing them and the balls from the catapult as well. The ball from the catapult as well. And they must do it in 60 minutes and they'll win the money. And there's also a chance to win a shield to protect them from murder. On the way, their journey collecting these pieces, there will be shield boxes. And only the players that get the ammo boxes or the shield boxes per se are eligible to compete for the shields. And so they don't tell us how many, there's a handful of them. And if the catapult isn't built in time, they will not win the money, and also nobody will be able to play for the shield. So that's the rules. Pretty self-explanatory. They got to go get these pieces, carry them, lug them up this mountain, shoot the catapult, shields along the way, grab them. Let's go. It's a challenge of brute strength. It's a similar challenge to a actual challenge on a challenge season. And CT good with this. Johnny Bananas would have been good with this. Deontay Wilder would have been good at this. Marcus would have been good with this. A lot of players that are gone would have been good with this, but they got rid of the strong guys because that's what they think is one of the traitors, and they've been wrong every single time so far. So I bet you they were kicking themselves when they were having to lug this big old catapult up this mountain because they're like, dang, we got rid of the strong guys and we got all these girls that can't lift nothing. They just carrying a single box or a sandbag. I know they was tight and they was thinking about that. So just y'all remember, it's not always the strong guys you need to go after. You need, especially in games like this, you need them to help you with this mission, or else it wouldn't have been as hard. It wouldn't have, but they did it to themselves. They did it to themselves. So soon they start the mission, and Kate starts complaining about why things can't just be easy, and we're not in the castle. She just moaning and complaining the whole nine, up and down. I bet people was getting pissed off at her, like, "Shut up already, Kate. Just get to work. You've done this already, so it shouldn't be nothing to you." But they look like they moving slow as hell when they start this mission. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna finish this in 60 minutes. There's no way because they're just basically walking from the get go. You can't tell me that they're gonna finish this. And then the distance they had to go, we find out at the end. There's no way. But I don't know. I've seen crazier things, but I don't know. They was moving pretty slow to me. So the first thing they do is cross the current that's moving kind of fast, and it's pretty funny. People are falling in the water. Sandra falls, Trishelle falls, Kevin falls. There's a mess up in this current. I mean, it looks kind of fun walking across a current, but it can also be a little dangerous. I don't think they're gonna put them in a place where the current's just so crazy. But it was a funny part. People were struggling and losing themselves a little bit. But soon, Trishelle sees a shield box and she's with Kevin. Kevin's helping her across the river, so she sees it. She's like, "Oh, there's a shield box. Help me get it. Help me get it." And he's like, "Hell no, girl. I'm going to get it." So they both start running towards it. She runs. She falls in the river. Kevin falls in the river. Kevin, I don't know what the hell he's doing. He need to do leg day or something because he is looking a mess, coach. I was like, Kevin, what is going on with this? Y'all not work out in Bling Empire? I mean, is it just about money? I'm assuming it's about money. I need to look up Bling Empire. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna watch it. I'm gonna look up some clips and see what's really going on because it was embarrassing. You let Trishelle beat you to the shield box and you tried to cheat and get it from her when she found it first. Pathetic. He needs to be looked at next. He's just looking sillier and sillier every episode. I mean, voting out the wrong people, accusing the wrong people, and then falling in this river racing Trishelle to get to this shield box. I don't know. It looked like he gave up to me, kind of, but I don't know. It was strange. But yes, soon 22 minutes pass and they finally get to the catapult equipment. So Peter takes off and grabs one of the ammo boxes as well. He sees one in the corner, or he sees one out in the yonder. Goes and grabs the shield box. He said he doesn't care what anyone thinks about him going for the shield box. He's doing it for protection. And the group soon gets the catapult assembly together and they are headed to the long point. So I don't understand why Peter thinks he's not safe, because he admitted to his whole elaborate plan was this and then it worked. So why would a traitor admit this whole entire plan and think that's good for their game? That should have been a whole giveaway that Peter was faithful. So it doesn't matter what Dan or Parvati or anyone else said. He should have been he shouldn't have been tripping about no shield box. Like in the least bit. So we're missing some context there about why he was so nervous. Maybe it was in his head. Maybe he thinks since he's being outspoken now he's the next target because that wasn't his plan originally, but now he's doing something. So I don't know. I didn't see him being in danger the whole time. So I didn't get his major scarcity of getting a shield per se. Maybe to just save face, but these people are liable to switch up on anything. But I didn't think he needed to do that. So yeah, he goes gets the shield box, and soon they're going up the hill, and the hill looks kind of steep. Like this, they're not moving very fast, as they say. And I'm shocked that they got this in 60 minutes, but it looks tough. I mean, CTs can't even pull this dang thing. They need everybody. And they're carrying these big sandbags and the boxes and equipment, and the guys are doing all the heavy lifting. The girls, they're trying to do their best and whatnot, but it definitely does not look easy. CT's like, look, I did not know we was doing a challenge on this thing. I came here to take a break, man, and I ain't in best shape right now, so y'all need to chill on me. They was giving it to him. They was definitely giving it to him. And soon, everyone puts all the bags in the sled, and everyone's going to help pull because that seems easier. And they're making it up slowly but surely. They're making it up. But soon as they make it up, they see the catapult. And this catapult looks huge. I mean, it looks like the size of a mini stage. It's ginormous. And I can imagine that thing probably weighed a good 500 pounds because it's wood, it's thick wood. And all these little contraptions on top of it as well. So did not look easy. I know some people was not even helping pushing that thing. They're kind of probably like whatever. But we see Peter, Bergie, CT. They're really giving the brunt of the work and pushing the team to victory. It's give them a hand claps for that. They definitely coming through for the team. So yes, soon there's 10 minutes left, and they're still pushing the catapult up. It doesn't like they're going to make it in time at all. I don't know if we're getting editing tactics. I don't know if they're tricking us. I don't know what's going on right now, but they don't even look close because they still got to construct the catapult too. And this thing don't look like it's an easy Lego setup. This looks kind of complicated. This isn't no, this isn't no, setup you get from Nebraska Furniture Mart. It definitely looks like it's taking some good competency and skill to put this thing together. And soon, yes, Parvati finds a shield box. She picks that up, and soon, the girls they put their ammo boxes on the little thing that they're carrying. They're carrying like a what do you call those things? Four people can carry. I can't remember, but the girls are carrying this small sled with boxes and sandbags, and the girls get to the top of the hill first, and they see Alan. And Alan says the first ones to put their ammo boxes on this hay are eligible for competition. And so right when that happens, the girls drop everything, take off with the ammo boxes, put it on there. They're like, fuck all this. I'm getting up here, coach. Boom, 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 boom. So the girls, Sandra, Sheree, Parvati, and Trishelle all get the boxes and sprint up there, and they're like, look, we're good. Now, Kate gets a box too. So she picks up a box, but it's definitely not hers because she's only one that didn't pick up out of this group. Other people that placed in there didn't pick it up on the trip. And so she's holding it really close to the hay, and she's contemplating putting it there. She's not, she's like, I'm here for myself. I need to make sure I'm safe. I would have been doing Peter pretty dirty, So I don't even, I don't know if she was holding it for him and waiting for him. And like she was waiting for him, I don't think she was gonna actually do it. That might have just been a trick to think she makes people think that she would. But Peter's like, look, that's my box, Kate. So he probably told her like, hey, you get there first, hold on to my box, and I got you. You'll be good. And she just got here too. She can't afford to make a big move like that and then potentially make enemies out the whole house. Because that's something that would make enemies out the whole house is stealing a fellow faithful's box, which whoever thinks is a faithful at least, and using it for your own good. That would have got you voted out next. So smart on her part to do that because you can use that as argument. Like, hey, I helped Peter the faithful help us get out a traitor. That was me too. Because if I didn't give him the ammo box, even though he didn't win it, it's the principle that matter. So they get to the top, and now it is time to put the catapult together. Like I said, I don't know how they finished this in time. It was crazy. It was interesting how they were able to in such a short amount of time, but I digress. They eventually have 5 minutes to put it together, and they did it. Maybe 4 minutes because they still had to launch the catapult. So there might have been some finagling with the time here, but we ain't gonna get into that side of the game. I mean, they got it together. That's all I can say. And they start launching the balls in the catapult, and they have to hit their targets to win the money. And the first one they throw, which, as we see, it hits. I don't know if it was actually the first one. I'm shocked if it was. Probably like the 10th one, but we'll see on that. I was a little like, you hit the first one, and John too. I don't know. It might be a little cap. Might be a little cap. But yes, soon they get that, get the money, they win the 20 grand. And so now it's time for the safety shield competition where they do the same thing, but each person does it individually. So Sheree, Peter, Sandra, Parvati, and Trishelle are the ones who are playing in this one to see who wins the shield. And it's on the players who get the ball on the catapult, closest to the catapult, the center of the catapult in the middle, earn the shield. And everyone else doesn't get nothing. And so it's a crapshoot competition. It looks like there's no practice, there's no skill. I don't know if they got practice rounds or anything, but it just looks like you pull back, psh, it launches, and hope for the best. I'm okay with that. I usually prefer some a little more skill, but I like crapshoots are fair too. They're fair to the extent of it's completely random and you can't prepare or strategize for it. So I don't mind it. But we found out Peter does not get it, and Sheree gets it. She gets the closest. She won it. Peter's hoping that she'll give it to her, but she's like, nah, I need it just in case. Just in case I don't make it home tonight. Wanna make love to you for the last time, baby. On the Jaheim setting of the game. Cherish each moment like the last. Cause baby, you're my better half. So just in case, let me get this shield and put it on my neck. That's what Sheree was singing. So Dan thinks, he's stressing right now. He doesn't get the shields, and but Peter doesn't get it, so he's like, okay, there's a chance for me, but I don't see there's been a chance with you trying to get Parvati. So what do you mean there's a chance with Peter? He's thinking about throwing out his name. I don't know what he's thinking right now. He's losing himself. He's already lost himself. Can't find it. No flashlight settings. And Dan knows what time it is. Peter's he's planning on doing his little rally technique to get Dan up out of here or Parvati. But because Dan and Peter kind of they a little working together a little bit. They converse, but I don't think Peter truly wanted to get Dan out. But since he knows like he got to get a traitor out, it's either him or Parvati. He's kind of just gonna see where the conversation goes and then just go from there. And soon, yes, Dan thinks if he can convince everyone at the table he's not a traitor, he'd be good because he'll give them a good argument. That was his plan. I don't know if that's a quality way to go, but you got to think. I need to put it on Parvati. I don't understand. Is this like the other episodes and people like Janelle is throwing out three names? Why are you throwing out three names? Throw out one name so people can jump on that one name. It just doesn't make sense to switch up on somebody, especially who's somebody who's well liked. You think people are gonna vote for that person? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. So uh, Peter says to Parvati and Dan, Peter says to Parvati and Dan, they're on the way back on the car, and they said the murder can be painless tonight. He doesn't want any fighting. He just wants things to go down and let's move on. But he has his sights set on Parvati. That's what he's telling us his actual target is. And so soon they get back to the house. Everyone goes into the rooms and relaxes. But Peter, he gets his little alliance together, which is him, Bergie, John, Sandra, maybe. We'll get to. I wrote it down later, but we'll get to it. He gets his little crew together, and they're discussing things. And Parvati, she tries to walk in the room, like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" He's like, "You need to step outside, cause this is a private party, and you need to know the magic password to get in." She's like, "Huh? Code?" And he just shuts the door on her. Y'all, he closes the door on her face, and she just like, "Oh no, I know what time it is." So she's stressing out. She don't know what to do. She's shook. She ain't been in this position no before. They ain't got no doors like this on Survivor. In Survivor, you can just walk anywhere you want, and nobody can hide and close any doors on you. So she didn't know what to do. She was definitely taken aback. And yeah, they discuss their little thing while Parvati's gone. And soon he opens the door. And when she gets inside, everyone's being kind of quiet towards her. So she, asks them questions like, were they talking about her? And Bergie says, oh, yeah, like Dan. We're thinking about Dan. But nobody's giving her a heads up. Nobody's saying much to her. They're kind of being real coy and quiet. And so she sees the writing on the wall, but it might be too late. She doesn't really say anything. And she says she knows her name has been out there, but she's not surprised. She doesn't give, we don't get to see her give any explanation or reasoning on anything at this point. You just see her walking around, just eyeballing, side-eyeing people. She's not doing a little squinty eye thing no more. So that thing has went out the window when the pressure's on. Sandra says no party. Sandra said she's been trusting Dan, but that's it. I know. And soon, Peter said he doesn't know who all the traitors are to Dan, but he knows he's working with at least one other person to take their shot at him. And so Peter and Dan talk for a little bit. They get, like they understanding each other. They seem to have a decent rapport, but they kind of just say, "Look, what happens happens in there," and they shake on it like, "Good luck, good luck." And so it's time for the round table meeting, the best part of the show. So up to this point, we've got Dan and Parvati stressing. They've been stressing, struggling, trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. They don't know. They're definitely they need to go against each other at this point, but I think because they're working so hard together, they just don't want to do that. I think it's silly. It's either you or me. Why does we? It's one of us two, and if it's you or me, I got to choose me. Why would I say if you and me go home? Are you gonna split some of the money with me? Is that what it is? So I don't get it. I mean, you had to have seen it. Dan saw it. He knew the names out there. And Phaedra's name wasn't once out there. And you're gonna throw hers out of all people. Then you're gonna flip everybody when you don't even talk to anybody. That makes zero sense. That's like an instance I had recently where someone tries to call me and ask for something when they haven't spoken to me in months, and they think that I'm just gonna drop everything I'm doing and help them take care of their business when you ain't been talking to me. That's not how it goes. If you want something done and want other people to help you out, you got to stay in contact and communication with them so they don't think that you're using them. And that's probably how everyone felt with Dan when he's now talking to them out of the blue because he wants to use these people. They're not stupid. But Dan thought he was the smartest one in the room, thought he was the captain of the ship when really, he's basically just, the anchor man. That's what he is. So the round table starts, and Dan says first to speak. He says, "Everyone, raise your hand if your name has been written down at least once on the chalkboard." So those people are probably not traitors. Okay. So Dan soon points the finger at Bergie, Phaedra, uh, Sheree, Sandra, and Parvati, because those are the ones who's never had people's vote write their names down. So like, okay, that's enough to evict someone, but that's where it starts. So I'm like, wait. So you're pointing at the people who's never been voted on. You think that you're insulting the faithfuls at this point because you're thinking, oh, we're not even close to getting the traitors, so we're picking for somebody who's never been voted on. Now he was right about two of them. I'll give him that. I will give him that. But that's so loose and far fetched. But the thing is, I'll give him credit on that. He's trying something, but he's on the right foot. He has Parvati's name in there, so I'm gonna give him that. Maybe I'm thinking like, okay, he's gonna go to Parvati. Like this is what we need. And so he says voting tendencies. Sandra he goes through each person and their voting tendencies. He says the voting tendencies Sandra has shown is that she's voted people out, but she's explained herself why in every single time. Okay. Sheree had one vote with John, but she's explained it out. She's out of the equation. She explained it. I was like, what? She voted wrong though. Huh? Doesn't make sense, bruh. You giving people free passes, but I don't get your angle. That should have been a red flag right there. Another one. And he says Bergie just goes to the crowd. Wouldn't a traitor just go with the crowd? I can tell you didn't go to law school, coach, because your analysis on the situation is piss poor. And good thing you don't have to do this kind of thing in Big Brother, or else people would have been laughing at your face. He's losing himself in the music. He thought this was gonna go a different way, but he's just giving all these silly. His reasonings are silly as hell. And so then he says that just leaves two people. Um, and she said Parvati only voted outside the norm, and that's one time, and that was for Kevin. But she explained that was about. I feel like everyone explained what their votes were about. Did they not? Did they not? I don't know. And he said that leaves just one person, and that is Phaedra. So he completely flips the script, does not go on Parvati like he should, because people are already saying her name, especially the ringleader, uh, Peter. But then you go over Phaedra where no one's even close to saying her name, but out the blue, you think people gonna jump ship and you admit yourself that everyone likes her? Bruh, come on. You've been inside too long. I don't know if you're still living on COVID settings, but you need to come on, coach, because that was the goofiest game plan I've ever seen. The goofiest thing. And she's a trader working with you, so she thinks she don't have dirt on you, and she don't know what she's gonna say. Wow. Wow. That's all I gotta say. So yes, he said Phaedra had one vote that hadn't been explained. And she voted out Ekin Su. No one ever questioned her on it, and the next day Ekin Su magically gets murdered. A lot of people voted for Ekin Su. You know, she wasn't the only one, I'm sure. I have to look back, but I know she wasn't the only one to vote for Ekin Su. Maybe about 3 or 4 people voted for her. And it was shown like she drank the chalice, you know? So they knew it. Her death was a little different, of course, because it was a slow death. So they didn't just kill someone. But Ekin-Su didn't do nothing to Parvati, didn't do nothing to Phaedra. Nor did Phaedra have any reason to speak on her. If she shown that she was mad at Ekin-Su or something like that, or she did something to her, maybe, but it wasn't that deep. We could see that. So he's grasping for straws at this moment in time. And, he also points out Phaedra's breakfast reactions that are red flags. When Marcus, Larsa, and Tamara were gone, she had very weird reactions. She's like, she was quiet. She was this. And I'm like, bro, her breakfast reactions. That's your next thing. I mean, look, Peter said we saw his reactions too, so I call a spade on that one. But Dan, you were staring at her the whole time when you had your eye on your eye on her this whole time, but you never said her name until now, especially before when these people asked you to put a name out on the table and you said nothing. That's a little suspicious, bruh. That's a little suspicious because you had plenty of times to say this name, but you didn't. You went to wait till the last minute. The thing is, when people go to these round tables, they already have their mind made up for the most part. A few things can sway some people, I'm sure. Get in an argument here and there, call somebody out you weren't supposed to or didn't say earlier. I get it. But for the most part, people have their minds made up, and you just flipping the script on someone who everyone loves, think that's just going to work. Even if she is a traitor, which she is, that's not how the game works. That's not how the game works. So it looks like he has her a little shook right now. She's just like, whoa, like this dude really coming for me. For me. She's like, all right. She said, hold on. Let me roll my sleeves back real quick. Tie my hair up. Let's get it popping. She got the controller and sat up a little bit. She was sitting back. Now she sat up. So she's ready to get this game going. Phaedra said, oh, Dan, so Dan is now, getting attacked by Phaedra and Kate because his accusations are ridiculous. Because Kate's like, why would you come in at her because her reaction in breakfast? That's so silly. That's nothing. Because she said my burger delicious. Like Kate is backing her up right now. Kate, you a real one. I like you, Kate, because you backing up your homegirl in a situation and you not want to be one of these scared people who's sitting back, letting Phaedra do all the heavy lifting. You out there giving her helping hand, and not enough people do that. People want to see things go on in crowds and not help out. They just want to see someone get attacked. And even though they know it might be wrong, they're not going to say anything because they don't want to be looked at as the next crazy person, or they don't want to be looked at as another outcast, or they don't want to be looked at as someone else who is actually a player in a sense. And that can happen in the real world too. I remember the other day I was at the post office and this Karen was yapping at the the postal service worker who's behind the desk, and she's like, "You did this, you did that." She's going at him, cussing him out, flipping the middle finger. Everybody else is just standing there in line watching. So I said, "Hey, leave him alone. Stop it." I mean, it's another brother. I'm not gonna let him get stomped out in the schoolyard. So then she's trying to come at me. I was like, I don't care, come at me, but you're not about to get at this other brother when he didn't do nothing. And if he did do something, you need to go take your butt home because I'm not trying to hear it, and none of us are either. We trying to get this mail in, we trying to get to work, and we have places to be. So then she starts coming at me, and then ultimately, my plan was to get her out of there and get her away from the situation, which happened. She left because I was the one to speak up and get her off this dude. And everyone's like, "Oh, you did a good job, thank you, thank you." And I was like, "Well, anybody could have said anything, but you guys are just here watching." So we need to stop watching and start helping and getting involved, especially when we see some atrocities going by and we're just going to be side characters and let things go. I'm not saying put your nose in every situation, but only things that you know that are right and wrong. And I knew this lady was in the wrong because there's no reason she should be yelling at this mail worker, postal service worker. There's no reason. There's no reason. So I don't care. But yes, Kate's a real one for doing all that. So Kate has her back and saying, all these other things. And Phaedra also says, Dan says she's extra. And Phaedra's like, well, of course I'm extra. I have to be extra and do too much. That's just who I am. But it's better than you than do too little. But tonight you about to get banished. Woo! She got him with that line. She got him with that line. Dan says he's trying to put the heat on her with the accusing and whatnot, and just making up, not making up stuff, but just pointing little things out that's really nothing. And Phaedra said he's a big brother winner, not once but twice. Dan's like, oh, I've only been it once, almost twice, but he smirks and he says this. I'm like, bruh, stop stroking your own ego at this point. Phaedra also points out the fact that Bergie voted for Dan last night, and he was right on his suspicions. And she's like, you got the wrong one, player. I don't know why you chose me out of all these, but we got ourselves a Pokemon battle up in here. And last I checked, you don't have no legendary ones in your back pocket. I got all. I got my dual disc, and I got the Egyptian God card and Exodia. What you got? The Dark Magician. Karibo? You got Karibo, huh? Mm-mm-mm. And everyone is cracking up at this point because Phaedra is clocking him left and right. He's like, bam, 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 bam. She's giving out all the things. I want to see the uncut, unfiltered version of this convo because she was not holding no punches. She had everything on deck. And soon Peter speaks up and says it has to be Dan, Parvati, or CT. And he's pretty sure it's not CT, so it has to be Dan or Parvati. Parvati says, there's a group, and if you're not in Peter's group, then you're probably going to get murdered. She's talking about the little five group that locked her out the room. Like, Parvati, you're dumb too because you should be jumping on Dan at this point. Like everyone's on Dan. Get the target off you. Parvati and Dan are just not. Look, I get you don't want to go against your friend and you don't want to throw your friend on the bus. I get it. But it's a you or me situation. There's no other option besides one of you two. There's none. At this point, you see Phaedra's not going to get voted out. It's not going to be Peter because y'all not even coming to Peter. So it's going to be one of you two. So if Parvati, you were smart, even though you were safe tonight, you should have jumped on Dan even more and stomped him out because that can prove and solidify your state as a faithful. But you didn't do that. So now that means like you're probably next, regardless if you recruit Peter and he accepts or not. Just my opinion. Because he can't just switch up like that. I mean, eventually he can, but get him. He's probably going to get you out and then work with Phaedra. Period. That would be the smartest game plan in his book. Oh, I'm a faithful still. Let me get out another traitor. Boom. And then me and Phaedra can slide this thing onto the end. That's the best game plan at this point. But yes, Dan, get back to the table. Dan says he's quiet, but he took a shot, so he has to pick Parvati, or he has to pick Phaedra at this point. Um, and he says the reason Phaedra, Parvati says the reason why she was trusting Dan was because, and then she got interrupted at this point, and she's like, it doesn't feel good to be falsely accused because Peter kept accusing her, and Peter was jumping on her too. She was stomping her ass. Like, hold up, he gonna let you get a word in, Parvati. So you had to speak up or speak quick, because he was not having it. He was like, nah, you done talking. It's either you or Dan. You want to say some nonsense? Let's just stomp Dan out, because you ain't saying nothing. But we'll get you tomorrow, Coach. And Phaedra said she trusted Dan from day one because he's a really good game player, but she may have trusted the wrong person. Peter's telling everyone else, or Parvati said she trusted Dan from day one because he's a really good game player, but she may have trusted the wrong person. So now she's trying to add on a little extra, you know, sauce to the hot dog, but Peter shuts that down again. Peter is not. Peter is showing up. He is showing up and showing out, and I love it. I like you, Peter. I knew I liked you when I met you initially. So we're going to have to meet up again soon, my friend. And soon the discussion is over. So people start voting. Phaedra votes for Dan. She said he deflected on the wrong person, but he going to learn tonight. That's right. You better watch who you checking with, Dan. You better watch it. And you had to learn the hard way. So watch when you come at us brothers and sisters like that, coach, without some concrete evidence and proof and a good game plan, or else you going to get murked, which you did. Sandra voted for Dan. Peter voted for Parvati. John voted for Dan. John calls Dan the silent slaughterer and that he needs to be taught a lesson. Parvati voted for Dan. Kevin voted for Dan. Trishelle voted for Dan. Dan votes for Phaedra, which was silly. You should have voted for Parvati, but at that point you should have realized you were cooked. So I don't know what you were doing except trying to save face, a little bit of face, but you weren't because you knew you were going home. He says he should have known better than go up against such an elegant lawyer. And now you giving her props, huh? But you said she was done before and she was just a housewife and didn't have any gameplay and didn't think highly of her. But now you thinking she should have been better? Boy, sit down and get out your box. And maybe you should watch some Housewives and see what's really popping. It's, you're stuck in your own world right now. CT soon votes for Dan. Sheree votes for Dan. Bergie votes for Dan. Kate votes for Dan. And MJ votes for Dan. And yeah, Phaedra says he pulled the shenanigans, but he learned again tonight. And so the only people who didn't vote for Dan was Peter, which is interesting. But he knew he was voting for one of the two. Um, him and Parvati were going back at each other. And then Parvati voted for Dan too. I guess she did. I mean, look, she jumped on the bandwagon at the end. I forgot. So I guess the only other person that voted was Peter was for Parvati because he just had to keep her name out there just in case. Which smart move, smart move. And then when Party jumped ship, they're like, oh, she jumped ship on her friend. She's definitely a traitor. Like that. She gave her whole game away at this point. Like I hope people clock these little things. She gave away her whole game. And so Dan gets up there. He's like, I'm a traitor, and everyone's rejoicing. They clink in water and they celebrating. And he gets up out the house. Dan says he can see why not many people have gone toward Phaedra because she shredded him. That's right. You got to watch who you fighting with, and you got to be able to make sure you got that mouthpiece up against anybody before you go. And I knew Dan doesn't have the mouthpiece for that. He says himself he doesn't like to get in confrontations. He just likes to come play his game and move on. He's not about that life, but he tried it. And I don't know if he thought that she wasn't gonna have a rebuttal for it, but like I said, he might need to step outside a time or two. But he learned. Trishelle knows that Dan waited to the last minute to suspect a traitor, and he finally did, but it was too little, too late, and he called out Phaedra, who, you know, maybe Dan really, he was getting on he was getting at another fellow traitor, and that might have been a hint. So Trishelle's on to something. Trishelle might be on to something here. I mean, she knows she. We'll see if she can get her strategic point across and use that as a reason to vote Phaedra out next. Who knows? We'll see. Phaedra said she had no idea that Dan was going to do that. And, soon the little group of faithfuls that I talked about earlier getting together, which is Bergie, Trishelle, John, Kevin, and Peter. And they're like, oh, we're the faithful of the faithfuls. And that's what everyone's calling them right now. The faithful, most faithful of the faithfuls. And so, yeah, they say we're going to done it with Dan. Now we're getting Parvati next, and we're going to be good and get this money. Parvati says it's weird that they go in the room and shut the door. They're putting off a lot of people, but she's going to take this bachelor down. I mean, it's not, if you're another faithful and you're not in this group, you should be happy, like you should be joyous. I mean, maybe you'll have to be suspectful of everyone still at this point, but they're working this hard to get a traitor out. You got to look at the little clues right now. I mean, why would a traitor would be smart to put themselves out in a group like this, but it got to take a real brilliant genius to do that. And Peter might be the only genius at this point to think of something like that. So we'll see. I mean, he's a faithful as of now, but we'll see if he continues it. We'll see if his behavior changes if he decides to become a traitor. We'll see. And so soon the traitors meet up in the traitors' turret. Everyone goes to bed, and Parvati and Phaedra, they speak. And Phaedra said she was pissed. She was so pissed, and she would have went off more, but she's a Christian woman, and she was gonna rip his heart out. They know that there's an alliance coming for both of them, and Parvati said she's thinking about getting Peter because that might be her only choice because he's the ringleader, and Phaedra's like that might be not be a good idea because that's the obvious choice. You're playing right to their hands. Parvati thinks that that's the only move she has. I get what Parvati is trying to do. She's trying to go out swinging. She doesn't just want to get somebody random out and then she's out next and didn't even get to take a shot. But get somebody out like CT. Get somebody out like that's close to him, but not the closest, because that can throw some sense. I mean, you got to get one of Peter's closer allies. I'd say even get Bergie out or get CT out. That would be a smart game plan. Just because if you get Bergie out, it'd be like, okay, they really wanted him out for some reason. We don't know why. Even though we placed this case that it wasn't Bergie, they still got him out, and they would confuse everyone yet again. CT, because he was one of the suspicious people in Peter's plan. And they could be like, well, you thought Peter was a traitor, but he wasn't. So he's out now. So like, are these two traitors? That could throw him off the scent too. I think those are the only two viable options at this point without it just being pointless. That's what I'm thinking. But then the host comes in and says they have a chance to recruit a faithful to become a traitor or kill someone. So they can pick anyone. So if they choose to pick someone as a traitor, they won't be able to murder anyone. But the person they pick also has to accept their invitation. So Parvati says she's suggesting Peter because that would turn him on her side. Phaedra doesn't think that's a good idea to trust Peter because it doesn't matter. He could still be in to kill her regardless if he's a faithful or a traitor. Parvati says it'll be fun to recruit him to make him a blue blood murderer and see him murder his friends. So she got that purple emoji face, smiley emoji face going right now. She says she don't care, coach. She's ready to go down, but she's going down on her terms. I like it. Add some little extra effect to the game. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm with her on that though. I would probably pick that. I would probably pick Peter too, besides CT and Bergie. Because if you pick Bergie, that's Peter's best friend. You know, he would never be suspected, and then that could throw off the scent as well. CT, maybe not pick him because he's already kind of name been thrown out there a little bit, but and people it could help. I think those two could help a lot. But Dan is Peter is choice number one for sure to make this game really flip on its head. So Phaedra says, takes lets Parvati takes the reins. It's her decision because she's the one that's in the ICU right now, and her name she's gonna be gone tomorrow if something big doesn't swing. And they decide to send Peter the invitation. He reads it and he's conflicted because he doesn't know if he wants to take it because you know he's proud of what he's done so far, and he would be the least suspected person of being a traitor. And that's where we left off, waiting for his decision. I feel like he's not going to take it. I feel like he's that dude where he wants to win as a faithful, but maybe he wants the power now, and he's looking at it from because he's with the team now, and with your team and then going to individual, it's a different mindset. I think he's not going to take it. I think he's not going to take it, and nobody's going to be murdered the next day, and then Parvati might be gone unless she can do something. But maybe he might. Maybe he's like, look, this is going to be fun. I want to be a traitor. I can win the game because everyone thinks I'm a faithful. Perfect situation. He's a win-win scenario, but that's how the episode ends. Great episode once again, y'all. A lot of strategic implementation taking place finally, especially on Peter's part, beginning with the last episode. And so he's clocking right now. He's clocking. He's on the his P's and Q's, and he's showing everybody what time it is and that y'all need to watch out for these bachelor folk because they not here to play. I'm actually gonna be seeing one of my bachelor folk next week, the Bachelor, Mr. Clay Necker. So we gonna get some stuff with him. Y'all gonna check it out. That stuff's gonna be on the Patreon itself. Um, yeah, y'all, we got some cool stuff coming through. Thank you for joining me with this episode. We got some Squid Game people about to pop on the Patreon soon with some BTS things I got going on tonight and tomorrow. A lot of Squid Game people actually. And yeah, we got another trip coming up soon, so we got some another vlog coming. But yeah, y'all appreciate y'all tuning in. Thank you for tuning into the DeAndre way. Make sure to subscribe and click that button. I really appreciate all y'all. And we're growing slowly but surely. The vlogs popping off. And if you guys, you like the show and you like the reviews, thank you so much. But check out, you like the sports. I'm trying to do all the things. I'm trying to, diversify it a little bit. You don't come for just one thing. You'll get multiple things. You'll get different version and aspects of what I'm doing and me as well. And we just gonna keep growing and thriving from here. So thank you guys once again. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me at the DeAndre way, and I hope you have a good rest of